got more deer. Hold on.
We're on the side of a damn mountain.
Depends on if you sell it as a cow or sell it as people.
We've been on a big buck. You smoked him.
Mother Nature is a cruel mistress. We were enjoying 70-degree heat all week, and now we're back home and it's 10, 15 degrees. This trip was truly a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Noah and I got married back in May, and we had been joking about going on a hunt for our honeymoon, but there was no feasible way for us to really do it until I got the text from Mountain Archery Fest saying that we had won this hunt. And I had a lot of people, especially from my side of the family, wondering, why the heck would we go to Arizona for our honeymoon? Well, this is really why. So day one, 20 minutes after legal light, we were already on some big bucks. Noah and I, of course, are inexperienced when it comes to West Coast hunting. We could tell that Toby had really done his homework. Noah and Brandon took off in the buggy to try and head off the buck and his does. But unfortunately, by the time they had reached that canyon, they had disappeared into the gully. That same buck showed up that evening, about in the same area, and this time Noah and Toby tried to head him off. And they were able to get within 150 yards, but the terrain didn't offer a good way to sneak in, and they were busted once they made it to about 100 yards. Morning of day two was the same story. Now this was the opening weekend of bow season, so there were other people on the mountain. We had to move up to a higher point, but that didn't mess with Toby at all. He had us on deer right away. This time, Brandon, Noah, and I decided to head to the backside of the hill where we had hoped the buck and does would slowly work their way to. We hiked up and around to the backside of the hill and settled ourselves down, hoping they would make their way towards us. We tried to push closer to the top of the hill, and in doing so, they spotted us and headed for the high country. And when I say high country, I mean it. The canyon below them was nothing but catclaw and prickers, and it wasn't worth trying to push through all of that up to them on the top of the hill, which was too steep to approach from the back. So that afternoon, we decided to head to the flats where there's a couple cattle drinkers. Noah and I took up either side. Brandon helped me brush in a lookout from about 40 yards away. Toby stayed back at the lookout point to keep an eye on the bucks to see if they'd come down our way. And we had pushed them hard enough, they did not want to move. Day three started just like the other two. Toby had us on nice deer immediately, but this time they were at the very top of the hill. So to get to them, we had to cut around them and work on the back side of the mountain where Toby didn't have eyes on us. As we rounded the canyon, a large buck with a group of does took off, and we had no idea that he was even there. Toby knew there was 2 bucks still in the area, so we crept our way around the side of the mountain. We attempted to get ourselves into position again, but the larger buck left. Toby sent me a video showing this little 2x completely passed out sunbathing on a rock. We were within 100, 150 yards of him. He really wasn't a big buck, but being that close, and after all the work we had done to get to the area, we had to try and stalk him. So Brandon and I crept over the top of the mountain with trusty Betsy in hand and crept our way to 47 yards. At this point, he knew something was there. He picked up his head, looked around, and tried to see what was going on.
Laura and I just got into 47 yards on a 2-point. We had a doe in here we didn't know was here, but he stayed bedded, but I'm sure he was more alert, but he was crashed out cold when we were making our move in here. But we had him 47, he stood up dirty behind a bunch of catclaw, big thick bush. All we could see was his head, and he didn't present us with no shot. So here we are.
Took off down the hill, but we were within 50 yards of the buck, so we're making progress.
Yep. Anyway, good job, Laura. Way to go. Way to stay on my butt and get in here.
We're learning.
Yeah, it was a good job.
That evening we glassed again, but all we could find were does. So Toby took out the shotgun and started to rack up some quail for dinner. Day 4 was the long one. Of course, that was the day we didn't pack lunches. Toby once again had gotten us on our big buck. We started calling him Old Timer. Toby has footage of this buck dating back 4 or 5 years. He's probably 8 to 10 years old. Going in one at a time hadn't worked for us yet, so we tried a two-pronged approach. Noah and Brandon took off down the hill again to try and flank him from the back. Once they got into about 100 yards, they were spotted by does, but they didn't take off too quickly. They were just slowly making their way down into the canyon. So Toby and I took off to try and head them off before they completely crossed over. Toby and I went as fast as we could, but by the time we got to the area they were crossing, they were 170 yards ahead of us. They crossed the canyon below us and made their way to the top of the hill, where they decided to bed down. So Toby and I were pinned. There was no way we could make a move on them. But because of how they were situated on the side hill, we knew that Noah and Brandon can make their way through the gully and up behind them through the drainage.
Okay, we're on the move again. We're gonna leapfrog Toby and Laura up this wash. The buck is bedded finally. And we're gonna come over the backside of him. Wish us luck.
At this point, we had pushed them far enough they were pretty tired and didn't want to move. And when the buck finally decided to get up, it was a nice, slow trot until he reached the top of the mountain where Noah and Brandon were. We had put a 7-hour stalk on this deer, and it was over in a flash. The morning of day 5, the only deer we could find was Elliot.
We just found a buck we nicknamed Elliot. He's a 4x on one side and he's broke off about 6 inches up on the other side. We're gonna make tracks up this hill and see if we can't get on him.
As Noah and Brandon pushed their way up the mountain, Elliot and his does snuck behind a finger and worked their way up and over the canyon without us ever seeing them move. At this point, we were pretty discouraged. We knew that we weren't likely to see any mule deer that evening, so Toby had the idea to ride up the nearby mountain road to look for Coues deer. We rode up a rocky, unmaintained forest road until we reached 6,800 feet, where we found a dry drinker that was actually full of water. And Toby recommended that one of us sit for the afternoon. As we still had a couple hours of legal light, I decided to go ahead and sit in a brush blind that somebody had left on the side. Within the 2 hours that I sat there, I probably had 10 to 15 does around me, and not to mention other wildlife. Driving back down the road, we were all pretty discouraged. This was supposed to be our last night, and none of us liked the idea of us going home empty-handed, especially Noah.
Well, we're here for another day. We're out glassing this morning, trying to find a mule deer buck. We found some does.
Toby found some does.
Yeah, Toby found the does. I can't see, not with these binos, but that's besides the point. We can't get on a buck by mid-morning. We're gonna run up the mountain. Laura's gonna set up for Coues deer.
Oh my God. Sitting at this blind for 10 minutes and a buck walks up. I put my 40 on him. He's like 42, 43 yards. I saw him go uphill, but the shot hit him. It sounded good. We got an arrow in a deer on our last day. Wow, what a spot. I didn't even get my camera up. I was just about to get up to head across the road to call the boys when 2 more bucks show up. I got more deer. Hold on. Once they had finally had their fill and taken off, I slowly got out of the blind and made my way back to the road to where I could get to service and call the boys and let them know I had taken a buck. I don't even think they had made it to the bottom of the mountain yet. So once I had Toby and Noah with me, we went to track my deer. As we were working our way up the hill to find him, we hear a rustling and a grunting coming at us from the top of the hill. And what comes straight at us but a coatimundi sniffing his way through the undergrowth straight for us. Noah has his bow in hand and I a rangefinder, so as he makes his way towards us, Noah tries to get a shot on him, but doesn't connect. He goes for a second shot, and we think he got him, but looking back at the footage, we think it just ricocheted just barely under him. We were all just stunned to see a coatimundi that close up. While I was more than grateful to harvest this animal, it was bittersweet. We had put a ton of time and work to prep for a spot and stalk hunt, and in the end, we didn't make that final connection. All it took was sitting in a ground blind for 15 minutes. It all came down to Toby, who did his homework and knows these mountains like the back of his hand. When I heard about this hunt, I was beyond excited. I knew that it was going to be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, no matter the outcome. And it's just extra special that we get to come home with a successful kill.